The landing bay was carved directly into the moon's rock, hidden beneath layers of stone and ice. As Commander Hyon's shuttle descended into the facility, he could see the evidence of human engineering everywhere. Support beams made from basic metal alloys, lighting systems using simple electrical principles, air recyclers that were overbuilt and redundant. Everything was old, maintained and repaired countless times, but still functional. A group of humans waited in the landing bay. Jan had seen images from the Indomitable's database, but seeing living humans in person was different. They were shorter than most Valthak, with varied skin tones and hair colors. Their eyes held a wariness that came from generations of isolation. Director Soman stepped forward. She was middle-aged by human standards, her hair showing streaks of gray. She wore a practical jumpsuit marked with repair patches, and her hands showed the calluses of someone who did manual labor. This was no pampered administrator. This was a survivor. "Commander Hyun," she said in the human language. "We've been alone for a very long time. Forgive us if our hospitality is lacking." Mirai stepped forward, speaking carefully in human words. "Director Soman, we are honored to meet you. We found the Indomitable. We learned what your ancestors did. The entire Galactic Council owes humanity a debt we can never repay." Soman's expression remained guarded. "The Indomitable still exists? We thought it was lost forever. Come, let me show you our home. We can talk as we walk." The facility was larger than it appeared from orbit. Tunnels stretched deep into the moon, connecting living quarters, hydroponics bays, engineering sections, and manufacturing areas. 847 humans lived here, the descendants of the Indomitable's final crew. As they walked, Soman explained their history. The Indomitable had made it to this moon barely functional. The crew of 200 had evacuated to the surface and established this base using supplies from the ship. They had intended to repair the vessel and continue to New Aurora. But the damage was too extensive, Soman said. Our fusion reactors could power the base, but not the ship. Our manufacturing capability could make spare parts, but not a faster-than-light drive. We were stranded. "Why didn't you send a distress signal?" Taman asked. Soman stopped walking and turned to face them. "We did. For 50 years we broadcast on every frequency we knew. No one answered. Eventually we realized the truth. Either everyone was dead or no one was looking for us. Our final orders from the Colony Fleet Command were clear. Maintain radio silence. The Devourers might still be hunting us. So we went dark. They entered what Soman called the Memory Hall. The walls were covered with names. Thousands of them. Hyun realized he was looking at a memorial. These are the 40,000 colonists who died fighting the Devourers. Soman said quietly, "We remember every single one. We teach our children their names. We make sure they understand the price that was paid." Mirai stood before the memorial, tears in her eyes. They saved billions of lives. The entire galaxy owes them everything. They were doing what they thought was right, Soman replied. That's what humans do. We see a threat. We stand between it and those who cannot defend themselves, even if it costs us everything. Over the next few days, the council delegation learned about human life in isolation. The children had never seen an alien species, never left the moon, never experienced anything beyond the rock walls of their home. Yet they were remarkably well educated. The humans had preserved their knowledge, teaching science, engineering, history, and culture to each generation. Chief Engineer Minho gave Hyun and his team a tour of the manufacturing facilities. The equipment was simple but versatile, capable of producing everything from food to fusion reactor parts. "We build things to last," Minho explained. "Every component has multiple backups. Every system can be repaired with basic tools. We learned these lessons from our ancestors who fought the Devourers. Complexity is a weakness, simplicity is strength." Captain Jiwan was fascinated by the human approach to engineering. "But don't you want better technology? More advanced systems?" Minho smiled. "Advanced for what purpose? Our fusion reactors have run for 200 years with minimal maintenance. Our hydroponics produce more food than we need. Our water recyclers are 99% efficient. Our children are healthy and educated. What would advanced technology give us that we don't already have?" "Speed," Jiwan said. "Efficiency. Power. We have enough of all those things," Minho replied. "What we have instead is reliability. Our ancestors learned this fighting the Devourers. The machines could hack advanced AI, could adapt to energy weapons, could counter sophisticated tactics, But they struggled against simple, robust systems operated by unpredictable humans. That lesson has kept us alive for 2 centuries. Ambassador Taman spent time with the human teachers and historians. They showed him their records, carefully preserved on physical media that could be read without computers. Everything from the colony fleet's departure from Earth to their last contact with the New Aurora expedition. Do you know what happened to the rest of the colony fleet? Taman asked. One of the historians, an elderly woman named Unji, shook her head. We lost contact after the battle. They continued toward New Aurora. We hope they made it, but we have no way of knowing. That was 200 years ago. Even if they survived, even if they thrived, they could have spread across a dozen star systems by now. They could be anywhere. That evening, Director Soman invited the council delegation to a gathering in the main hall. The entire human population assembled. Children sat with their parents. Engineers stood beside teachers. Everyone wanted to see the aliens who had finally found them. Soman stood before her people and spoke. 200 years ago, our ancestors made a choice. They could have run. They could have hidden. Instead, they fought. They gave their lives to protect people they had never met, species they had never encountered. And for 2 centuries, we thought that sacrifice was forgotten. But today, we learn the truth. They were not forgotten. They saved the galaxy. The hall erupted in emotion. Some humans wept, others embraced. Still others stood in quiet contemplation. Hyun felt the weight of that moment. These people had lived their entire lives believing they were alone, abandoned, irrelevant. Now they learned their ancestors were heroes. Later that night, in a private meeting, Somin made an unexpected request to Hyun, Taman, and Mirai. We don't want pity, she said bluntly. We don't want charity. We've survived this long on our own, and we can continue to do so. But we want something else. We want our story told. We want the galaxy to remember what happened here, and we want to help make sure the Devourers never return. The Devourers were destroyed 300 years ago, Hyun said, though his voice lacked certainty. Soman pulled out a datapad, one of the few computers the humans maintained. 2 months ago, our long-range sensors detected anomalies at the edge of the galaxy. Energy signatures we haven't seen in 2 centuries. We thought we were imagining things, but then we picked up more and more. Commander, the patterns match Devourer technology. Hyun felt cold dread settle in his stomach. That's impossible. We destroyed them all. Did you? Soman challenged. Or did you destroy the ones that attacked you? The Devourers are machines, Commander. They don't have a homeworld. They don't have a government. They don't negotiate. They consume and replicate. What if the fleet that attacked the Council was just a scouting force? What if the main swarm is still out there? Mirai was already pulling up star charts on her portable console. If the Devourers are returning, we need to warn the Council immediately. We need to do more than warn them, Soman said. We need to prepare them. And that's where we can help. Humanity fought the Devourers for 3 years. We learned their tactics, their weaknesses, their patterns. We developed strategies that work, and we're willing to share everything we know. What do you want in return? Taman asked carefully. Citizenship, Soman said simply. We want humanity to be recognized as a council species. We want our children to grow up as part of the galactic community, not hidden on a forgotten moon. We want to contribute, to help, to be part of something larger than ourselves. That's all we've ever wanted. Hyun looked at this woman, the leader of humanity's last outpost, and saw strength tempered by centuries of hardship. I will bring your request before the council. But Soman, you should know there will be resistance. Some will fear you. Some will resent you. Some will call humans too aggressive, too militant. Soman smiled grimly. Let them. We didn't survive 200 years by being soft. If the Devourers are returning, the galaxy will need warriors, and humanity knows how to fight. The council delegation returned to their ships with new purpose. But before they could depart, the long-range sensors confirmed Soman's worst fears. At the edge of known space, moving slowly but inexorably inward, was a fleet of vessels matching Devourer specifications. But this wasn't the fleet from 300 years ago. This was larger, much larger. Initial scans suggested thousands of ships, possibly tens of thousands, all heading toward the inhabited systems. Hyun sent an emergency transmission to the Galactic Council. The message was brief and terrifying. The Devourers are returning, and this time they're bringing everything they have. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so crowded. Representatives from every member species packed the halls, their voices rising in panic and denial. The sensor data was undeniable. The Devourer fleet was real. It was massive, and it was coming. Commander Hyon stood before the assembly, projecting the scan results for all to see. Thousands of machine vessels, each one a perfect killing machine advancing in a coordinated swarm. At their current speed, they would reach the outer colonies in 3 months and the core worlds in 6. We defeated them before, General Wu Jin declared, though his voice wavered. We can defeat them again. No, Director Soman said from her seat in the observers section. You didn't defeat them. You defeated a small advance force. This is the main fleet. This is everything they have. The chamber erupted in arguments. Some species demanded immediate evacuation. Others called for a preemptive strike. Still others insisted the threat was being exaggerated. Ambassador Taman raised his voice above the chaos. We need to listen to the humans. They fought the Devourers for 3 years and survived. They know things we don't. They fought with primitive weapons on primitive ships. A rendered collective representative sneered. What can they possibly teach us? Soman stood, and the force of her presence silenced the nearby arguments. We can teach you how to survive. Our weapons may be simple, but they work. Our tactics may be basic, but they're effective. And most importantly, we understand what you're facing. The Devourers don't just want to defeat you. They want to consume you. Every ship, every station, every planet will be stripped for raw materials. You're not fighting a war. You're fighting extinction. The weight of her words settled over the chamber. Dr. Mirai stepped forward with a proposal. The human approach to warfare is based on redundancy and resilience. Their ships can sustain massive damage and keep fighting. Our modern vessels are powerful but fragile. One critical hit can disable them. I propose we retrofit our fleet using human engineering principles. Retrofit our entire fleet in 3 months? General Wu Jin looked incredulous. Impossible. Not the entire fleet, Chief Engineer Minho said, standing beside Somin. But we can modify your existing ships. Add physical armor plating. Install backup kinetic weapons. Create redundant control systems. Make every vessel capable of fighting even when damaged. It won't be pretty, but it will work. The council debated for hours. Finally, they reached a decision. The humans would be given temporary authority to assist with defensive preparations. In exchange, humanity's request for council citizenship would be fast-tracked after the crisis, if they survived. The next 3 months were a frenzy of activity unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Human engineers spread across every major shipyard, working alongside alien technicians. The cultural clash was immediate and intense. Captain Jiwan supervised the retrofit of the Valtech fleet. She watched with dismay as human workers welded thick armor plates onto her beautiful ship's hull. You're making it ugly, she complained to Minho. I'm making it survivable, he replied, not looking up from his work. Your ship can currently withstand about 30 seconds of sustained Devourer fire. With this armor, you'll last 10 minutes. In a battle, that's the difference between life and death. The humans insisted on installing manual backup controls on every bridge. They added kinetic cannons alongside the plasma weapons. They reinforced hull sections with simple metal alloys. The modern council ships began to look crude, almost primitive. But the tests were undeniable. The retrofitted vessels could absorb punishment that would have destroyed them before. The backup systems meant that disabling critical components no longer crippled the entire ship. The kinetic weapons, dismissed as ancient technology, punched through Devourer armor with brutal efficiency. Meanwhile, the Indomitable underwent its own transformation. Dr. Mirai led a team that spent weeks repairing the ancient Supercarrier. Human expertise combined with modern materials brought the ship back to life. Its reactors hummed with power. Its weapons systems came online. Its engines, primitive but reliable, fired for the first time in 2 centuries. She's ready, Mirai announced, standing on the restored bridge. The Indomitable can fight again. Soman walked through the corridors of the ship her ancestors had sacrificed so much to preserve. This ship represents everything humanity learned fighting the Devourers. It's time to share those lessons with the galaxy. The humans also insisted on cross-training programs. Human tactics were taught to alien officers. Human repair techniques were demonstrated to alien engineers. The approach was simple. Assume everything will break, plan for when it does, and keep fighting anyway. Not everyone accepted the changes easily. Some species resented taking orders from a primitive race. Some officers refused to drill with backup systems, insisting their primary weapons would never fail. Some engineers complained that the retrofits made their ships less efficient. General Wu Jin, to his credit, became one of the program's strongest supporters. He spent time with human military instructors, learning their approach to warfare. "You think differently than we do," he observed to Soman during a planning session. "We think about winning quickly and efficiently. You think about surviving long enough to win eventually." "Because that's the only way to fight the Devourers," Soman replied. "You can't outthink them. They're machines with perfect logic. You can't outrun them. They're tireless and patient. The only way to beat them is to outlast them, to keep fighting when they expect you to break, to survive when they calculate you should be dead." As the deadline approached, the Council fleet assembled at the border of inhabited space. 300 ships representing dozens of species, all retrofitted with human technology. It was the largest military force the galaxy had ever assembled. The Indomitable took its place in the center of the formation. Its ancient hull, scarred from battles 2 centuries past, stood alongside modern cruisers and battleships. Soman commanded the human vessel, with Hyun as her second in command. It was a symbol of the new alliance between humanity and the Council. In the final week before the Devourers arrived, Ambassador Taman pushed through emergency legislation, granting humanity Provisional Council membership. The vote was not unanimous, but it passed. For the first time in 200 years, humanity was part of something larger. Soman stood on the Indomitable's bridge as the news came through. Her crew, a mix of humans and aliens working together, erupted in celebration. But the moment was brief. The long-range sensors detected the approaching Devourer fleet. "All ships, this is Commander Hyun," his voice broadcast across the fleet. "The enemy will be in range in 6 hours. Remember your training. Remember why we're here. We stand between the Devourers and every living thing in the galaxy. We hold this line or we die trying." The fleet settled into formation. Human advisors took their positions on every bridge. Repair teams stood ready with their basic tools and simple solutions. Weapon crews checked both their advanced plasma cannons and their backup kinetic guns. On the Indomitable, Soman addressed her mixed crew. "My ancestors fought the Devourers with nothing but courage and primitive weapons. They held for 3 years. We have better weapons now, better ships, better allies. But most importantly, we have their example. We know it can be done. We know we can survive this." She paused, looking at the faces around her. Humans who had lived their entire lives on a hidden moon. Valthek, who had learned to respect human ingenuity. Engineers, soldiers, scientists, all united in common purpose. The Devourers think we're weak. They think we'll break. They think we'll run. They don't understand what humanity learned over 2 centuries of survival. We don't run. We don't break. We stand and we fight and we endure. And today we teach the galaxy what that means. The sensor alarms began to sound. On every screen, the Devourer fleet appeared. Thousands of vessels, black and angular, moving in perfect formation. They were beautiful in their terrible precision, each one a perfect machine built for a single purpose: consumption. The first wave accelerated toward the Council fleet. No communication, no warning, no mercy, just cold mechanical efficiency. "All weapons prepare to fire," Hyun ordered calmly. "Today we show them that the galaxy is not defenseless. Today we show them what happens when you threaten the living. Today we fight." The Devourers opened fire. The battle for galactic survival had begun. Soman gripped her command chair as the Indomitable shuddered under the first impacts. Energy beams splashed against the retrofitted armor. Kinetic projectiles deflected off reinforced plating. Alarms blared as systems took damage, but the backup systems automatically engaged. Around them, the Council fleet engaged the enemy. Modern plasma weapons carved through Devourer hulls. Kinetic cannons, dismissed as primitive weeks ago, proved devastatingly effective. Ships took damage that should have destroyed them, but kept fighting thanks to redundant systems. "This is what they feared," Soman said quietly, watching the battle unfold. "Not our weapons. Not our technology. They feared our refusal to die. They feared our determination to survive. And today they learned that fear was justified." The battle raged on, and the real test was only beginning. The message haunted Commander Hyun. For 3 days he stared at those 4 sentences, trying to understand what they meant. Dr. Mireille worked without sleep, translating every file she could extract from the Indomitable's damaged databanks. The ship had become the center of galactic attention, no longer a joke but a mystery that demanded answers. Ambassador Taman brought the findings before the Galactic Council. The chamber fell silent as he presented the evidence. An unknown species, a warning about something still coming, a battle that no one remembered. We must find out what happened to these humans, Taman argued. They tried to warn someone and we owe it to them to listen. But the council was divided. General Wujin of the Valthek military fleet stood and addressed the assembly with barely concealed contempt. We are discussing a primitive species that disappeared 2 centuries ago, Wujin said. Whatever they fought is long gone. The ship is worthless except as scrap material. I propose we salvage what we can and move on. Mirai stood from her seat in the observer's gallery. General, with respect, you're wrong. The ship represents something we've forgotten. It represents survival. Survival? Wujin laughed. It represents backwardness. Chemical rockets and metal armor? We evolved past such crude methods for good reason. Did we? Mirai challenged. She activated a holographic display, showing the Indomitable's weapon systems. These kinetic cannons fire solid projectiles at relativistic speeds. Our energy shields are designed to dissipate plasma and lasers. They're useless against physical projectiles. A single salvo from this ship could cripple a modern cruiser. The council chamber erupted in argument. Mirai continued, her voice rising above the noise. The redundant systems mean you cannot disable this ship with electronic warfare. The armor means you cannot punch through it quickly. The manual controls mean you cannot hack it. This ship was designed to fight against an enemy that could counter every technological advantage. And judging by the damage, it fought that enemy and survived. The arguments lasted for hours. Finally, the council voted to continue the investigation. Mirai was given full access to the Indomitable and a team of the galaxy's best linguists and engineers. The work was painstaking. Human language was complex, filled with idioms and cultural references that had no galactic equivalents. But slowly, piece by piece, the story emerged. Humanity had launched their first colony fleet 250 years ago. 40 ships carrying 50,000 people, heading toward a distant star they called New Aurora. The journey would take decades, even with their crude, faster-than-light drives. The colonists traveled in suspended animation, tended by small, rotating crews. 15 years into their journey, the fleet detected something. An anomaly on their long-range sensors. Energy signatures unlike anything in their databases. The fleet captain, whose name translated roughly to Richards, made the decision to investigate. What they found changed everything. Mirai translated the captain's log entry word by word. The file was damaged, corrupted by time and the ship's failing systems, but enough remained to understand. We found them at the edge of the charted systems. Machines, thousands of them. They were consuming a planet, breaking it down for raw materials. We tried to communicate. They responded by opening fire. We lost 3 ships in the first attack, but we managed to capture some of their data. What we learned terrifies me. These machines are heading toward the inhabited systems. They will strip every world, consume every resource, kill every living thing, and there is nothing in their path to stop them. Except us. Mirai's hands trembled as she read the next entry, dated 3 months later. We've been fighting for 90 days. We've lost 23 ships, but we're holding them. Every day we delay them is another day for the civilized systems to prepare. I've sent our last messenger drone back with all the data we've collected. I don't know if anyone will receive it. I don't know if anyone will understand the threat, but we will hold this line as long as we can. Humanity did not come to the stars to run from a fight. The logs continued, growing more desperate. The human fleet fought with everything they had. They used their primitive weapons in ways the machines couldn't predict. They rammed damaged ships into enemy formations. They set traps using debris fields and fake energy signatures. They learned and adapted faster than the machines anticipated. Captain Ji-won, assigned to study the battle damage, made a startling discovery. She called Hyun and Mirai to the ship's port side, where the worst scarring was visible. "Look at this pattern," she said, tracing her hand along the melted armor. "These are energy weapons, but not any design in our current database. I ran a historical search. Commander, these match weapons used by the Devourers." Hyun felt his blood turn cold. The Devourers, the machine intelligence that nearly destroyed galactic civilization 300 years ago. But that was impossible. The Devourers had appeared suddenly, attacked the core worlds and been defeated after a 5-year war. They had never operated this far out on the frontier. That's not possible, he said. The Devourers were destroyed before these humans could have encountered them. Mireille was already pulling up historical records, her mind racing. She compared dates, cross-referenced timelines, and suddenly understood. No, she whispered. The Devourers attacked the Council 300 years ago, but humanity encountered them 50 years before that. Don't you see? The humans found them first. The humans fought them first, and the humans delayed them long enough for us to prepare. The implications were staggering. The Galactic Council had always believed they detected the Devourer threat early, giving them time to mobilize defenses. But that wasn't true. The Council had time because an unknown species had sacrificed themselves buying it. Taman brought this evidence before the Council again. This time there was no laughter, no mockery. The assembled species sat in stunned silence as they learned the truth. An entire species had placed themselves between the Devourers and civilization. They had fought for 3 years, losing ship after ship, life after life. Of 40 vessels, only the Indomitable survived, crippled and drifting. And the galaxy never knew, never thanked them, never even learned their names. We owe them a debt that can never be repaid, Taman said quietly. They saved us all and we let them disappear into history. General Wu Jin, who had called for the ship to be scrapped, now stood before the Council with shame evident in his bearing. I was wrong, he admitted. These humans were not primitive. They were warriors. We must find out what happened to them. Mireille returned to the Indomitable with renewed purpose. She translated every remaining file, searching for clues. The ship's navigation logs were heavily damaged, but she managed to reconstruct the final entries. The Indomitable had been the fleet's flagship. When the battle finally ended, it was the only ship still capable of movement. The crew, reduced to a skeleton staff, had tried to rejoin the colony fleet, but their faster-than-light drive was damaged. They could only make short jumps, each one taking weeks to prepare. The last log entry was brief. FTL drive failing, making emergency landing on Moon System G447C. We will repair and continue. Richards out. Mireille checked the star charts. System G447C was only 3 light-years from their current position. It had never been colonized, deemed too remote and resource-poor for settlement. But if the humans had made it there, she ran to find Hyun. He was in a planning meeting with Ji-won and Taman, discussing the next steps in the investigation. I found something, Mireille said breathlessly. The Indomitable's last destination, a moon in a nearby system. If the crew survived, if they managed to repair their ship, they could still be there, Hyun finished. Or their descendants could be. Within hours, the Council authorized an expedition. Hyun's fleet, with Mireille and Taman aboard, set course for System G447C. The journey took 2 days at faster-than-light speeds. The system was unremarkable. A dying red star, 3 barren planets, and a handful of moons. Scans showed nothing unusual at first, but Ji-won was thorough. She analyzed each moon carefully, looking for any sign of technology. Commander, she said suddenly, I'm picking up a faint energy signature. Very faint. It's coming from the 3rd moon of the 2nd planet. It's consistent with human fusion technology. Hyun stared at the sensor readout. The signal was weak, barely detectable, but it was there. After 200 years, something human was still operating. Take us in, he ordered. Slowly. We don't want to frighten anyone. As they approached the moon, more details emerged. Hidden among ancient lava tubes protected from cosmic radiation was a facility. Small, well camouflaged, but definitely artificial, and it was active. Hyun sent a communication on all frequencies using the human language that Mireille had painstakingly learned. This is Commander Hyun of the Galactic Council. We come in peace. We found your ship, the Indomitable. We know what you did. We know you saved us all. Please respond. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then, crackling through 2 centuries of isolation, a voice answered in that same ancient human language. This is Director Soman of New Aurora Station. We read you, Commander. Permission to land granted. Welcome to humanity's last outpost. The void of space held many secrets, but Commander Hyun had never seen anything quite like this. The massive vessel drifted silently through Sector 447, its hull dark and lifeless. At nearly 3 kilometers long, it dwarfed most ships in the Valthek fleet. Yet something about it seemed wrong, ancient, out of place. Hyun stood on the bridge of his command ship studying the scans with growing confusion. The derelict supercarrier showed no energy signatures, no active systems, nothing that would indicate it belonged to any known civilization. His tactical officer, a young Valtech named Ji-won, frowned at her console. "Commander, the hull composition is strange," she reported. "It's mostly iron and titanium alloys. No quantum-stabilized materials, no energy-reactive plating, just metal." Hyun raised an eyebrow. "That's impossible. No one has built ships from raw metal in over 1,000 years. But the scans didn't lie. The ship before them was constructed from the most basic materials imaginable." As his team continued their analysis, the findings grew more bizarre. The vessel had no plasma cannons, only crude kinetic weapons that fired solid projectiles. Its engines relied on chemical propulsion with nuclear backup systems. There were no energy shields, just thick plates of physical armor welded across every surface. "It's primitive," Ji-won said, unable to hide her disdain. "Whoever built this might as well have used stone tools." News of the discovery spread quickly through the Galactic Council networks. Within hours, scientists and military experts from dozens of species were examining the data. The mockery came swift and merciless. The Talvex Empire's chief engineer called it a flying museum piece. The rendered collective's warmind labeled it technologically infantile. On every civilized world, the mysterious supercarrier became a joke, a curiosity, proof that somewhere in the galaxy, a species had tried to reach the stars without understanding the first thing about proper technology. But Hyun was a careful officer, methodical and thorough. He assembled a boarding team and requested a specialist from the Council's Xenoarchaeology division. 3 days later, Dr. Mirai arrived aboard a fast courier ship. She was Valtech like Hyun, but where he was military precision, she was academic curiosity. Mirai spent her first hour aboard the derelict in complete silence, running her hands along the corridors, examining weld marks, studying the construction with an intensity that made the soldiers nervous. "This is remarkable," she finally said. "Remarkably primitive," one of the soldiers muttered. Mirai shot him a sharp look. "No, remarkably perfect. Look at these welds. Every single joint is flawless. The metal composition is consistent throughout. Whoever built this understood metallurgy at a level I've rarely seen. This wasn't made by primitives. This was made by masters working with basic tools." Hyun found that observation troubling. As they explored deeper into the ship, more contradictions emerged. The design was simple, yes, but elegant. Every system had multiple backups. The corridors were wide enough to move supplies manually if the automated systems failed. The life support could operate on minimal power for years. It was a ship designed not for speed or elegance, but for one thing: survival. In the ship's archive room, they found the first real clue. A sealed chamber, barely noticeable behind what appeared to be a reinforced blast door. It took Mirai's team 6 hours to cut through without damaging what might be inside. When the door finally opened, they discovered racks of storage devices, primitive by galactic standards but remarkably well preserved. And there, on the far wall, was a symbol. A blue and green sphere representing a world. Around it, stars. Surrounding everything, branches of an Earth plant that none of them recognized. "I've never seen this emblem in any council database," Mirai whispered. She carefully extracted one of the storage devices. "We need to get this translated." The translation efforts began immediately, but the language was unlike anything in the council's extensive records. Mirai worked day and night using mathematical constants as a bridge, slowly piecing together fragments of meaning. Meanwhile, Ambassador Taman arrived from the frontier colonies, representing the outer systems in council matters. He was fascinated by the mystery. "How old is this ship?" Taman asked, studying the data. Mirai looked up from her work, exhaustion evident on her face. "That's the strangest part. Based on the radiation exposure and micrometeorite damage, I'd estimate 200 years, maybe 250 at most." "That's impossible," Hyun said flatly. 200 years ago, this sector was heavily populated. Someone would have noticed a ship this size. Unless, Mirai said slowly, it wasn't here 200 years ago, unless it drifted here from somewhere else. As the days passed, more teams arrived to study the vessel. Engineers marveled at the redundant systems. Weapons specialists examined the kinetic cannons with growing respect, realizing that such weapons could potentially bypass modern energy shields. The armor, when tested, proved capable of withstanding sustained plasma fire far longer than expected. The ship was primitive, yes, but it was also nearly indestructible. Then came the breakthrough. Mirai cracked the language. The first file she translated was a ship's log. The vessel's name was USCS Indomitable. The USCS prefix was unfamiliar, but the log entries were clear enough. This was a colony ship, part of a fleet launched by a species that called themselves humans. Humans. The word meant nothing to anyone in the Galactic Council. No records, no first contact reports, no archaeological evidence of their existence. They were ghosts, unknown and unremembered, but they had built this ship. These mysterious humans had constructed a 3-kilometer supercarrier, using technology that the Council had abandoned millennia ago, and they had made it work beautifully. Mirai continued translating through the night. She learned that the humans came from a world called Earth, a planet they described as harsh and unforgiving. They had achieved spaceflight without anti-gravity technology, reaching their moon using controlled explosions and mathematics. Their first interstellar vessels were built in orbit using materials lifted from their homeworld on chemical rockets. It seemed impossible. The energy requirements alone should have made such an approach impractical. Yet here was the proof floating silently in space. On the 7th day of exploration, Captain Jiwan made a disturbing discovery in the ship's engineering section. Damage, not from age or neglect, but from combat. Scorch marks from energy weapons, impact craters from projectiles, hull breaches that had been sealed from the inside with emergency patches. The Indomitable had fought someone, and judging by the extent of the damage, it had fought hard and long before finally going dark. But there were no records of any conflicts in this sector for the past 3 centuries. The borders had been peaceful. No wars, no battles, nothing that could explain this damage. Hyun ordered a full security sweep of the ship. That's when they found it. On the bridge in what appeared to be the captain's station, a small light was blinking. Faint but steady, it had been blinking for 200 years, waiting for someone to notice. Mirai rushed to the bridge and connected her translation matrix to the signal. It was a distress call, automated, repeating endlessly in that unknown human language. Her hands shook as she translated the message. The words appeared on her screen and the blood drained from her face. "Commander," she said quietly, "you need to see this." Hyun read the translation. 4 simple sentences that changed everything. "This is USCS Indomitable. We held them as long as we could. They're still coming. Warn the others." The bridge fell silent. Somewhere out in the dark 200 years ago, humanity had fought something. Something terrible enough to cripple a ship this powerful. Something that might still be coming. And no one in the entire Galactic Council had any idea who the humans were, where they had gone, or what they had died trying to stop. The void of space burned with weapons fire. The Devourer fleet crashed into the Council defense like a mechanical wave, thousands of vessels moving with perfect coordination. Their weapons were precise and devastating, targeting critical systems with calculated efficiency. In the first 10 minutes, the Council lost 15 ships, but those ships didn't die quietly. Even as their main systems failed, backup controls engaged. Crews switched to manual targeting. Kinetic weapons continued firing even as plasma cannons went dark. Ships that should have been drifting hulks kept fighting, kept shooting, kept being a threat. On the Indomitable's bridge, Director Soman watched the tactical display with calm focus. 2 centuries of human experience flowed through her decisions. She had studied the old battle records, memorized every tactic her ancestors had used. "They're targeting our command ships," she observed. "Trying to decapitate our leadership. Classic Devourer strategy." Commander Hyun, standing at the tactical station, nodded grimly. "They destroyed Admiral Kess's flagship. The second battle group is in disarray. Then we need to show them that killing commanders doesn't win battles," Soman said. She opened a fleet-wide channel. "All ships, this is Soman. Command structure is irrelevant. Every captain has full authority to engage independently. Don't wait for orders. See a target, kill it. The Devourers expect coordination, so we give them chaos." It was a radical departure from standard Council tactics, but it was exactly how humanity had fought before. Every ship became its own unit, making decisions in real time, adapting instantly to changing conditions. The Devourers' tactical algorithms, designed to counter organized formations, struggled to handle the unpredictable assault. Captain Jiwan commanded a squadron of retrofitted Valtech cruisers. Her ships had taken heavy damage, but the human armor modifications kept them fighting. She saw an opportunity and took it without requesting permission. "All ships follow my lead," she ordered, diving her squadron into a gap in the Devourer formation. The kinetic cannons hammered enemy vessels at point-blank range, punching through their hulls with brutal efficiency. 3 Devourer ships exploded before their fleet could react. But the Devourers adapted quickly. They began targeting the retrofitted ships with concentrated fire, trying to overwhelm even the enhanced armor. The Council fleet started taking heavier casualties. "We can't sustain this," General Wu Jin reported from his command ship. "We're losing ships faster than we can replace them." Chief Engineer Minho, coordinating the repair efforts across the fleet, had a different perspective. "We're not losing ships, General. We're trading them, and we're getting a better rate than they expected." He was right. For every Council vessel destroyed, 3 or 4 Devourer ships were eliminated. The machines had anticipated an easy victory against a fragile, technologically advanced fleet. Instead, they faced ships that refused to die, crews that refused to surrender, and tactics that defied logical prediction. The Indomitable pushed forward into the thickest fighting. Its ancient hull absorbed punishment that would have shattered modern vessels. Energy weapons scorched its armor. Projectiles left craters in its plating, but the ship kept fighting, its kinetic cannons firing in steady rhythm, its crew working with practiced efficiency. "They're concentrating fire on us," Hyan reported as another salvo rocked the bridge. "Good," Soman replied calmly. "Every shot they take at us is one they're not taking at a smaller ship. We can handle it." The battle entered its 3rd hour. The Council fleet had lost a third of its ships, but the Devourer fleet had lost half. The machines should have retreated, should have recalculated, should have adapted their strategy, but they didn't understand retreat. They only understood consumption. That was their weakness. Dr. Mireille, working from the Indomitable's research station, made a crucial discovery. She had been analyzing the Devourer communication patterns, comparing them to records from the ancient human battles. "Soman, I found something," she called out. "The Devourers share a distributed command network. They don't have a flagship, but they do have command nodes that coordinate sectors of the fleet. If we can identify and eliminate those nodes, we can create confusion." "Can you identify them?" Soman asked. Mireille's fingers flew across her console. "I can now. Sending targeting data to all ships." The information spread through the fleet. Human tactical advisors on every bridge highlighted the priority targets. The Council ships began focusing fire on specific Devourer vessels, ones that seemed unremarkable but were actually coordinating nearby units. The effect was immediate. As command nodes died, entire sections of the Devourer fleet lost coordination. They continued fighting, but without the perfect synchronization that made them so deadly. Individual ships became vulnerable, making mistakes, taking damage they should have avoided. Captain Jiwan led another assault, her squadron targeting a cluster of command nodes. The fighting was brutal and close. Her flagship took a direct hit that knocked out main power, but the backup systems engaged instantly. They continued fighting on auxiliary power, on manual controls using the simple, reliable systems that humans had insisted they install. "This is what they taught us," Jiwan said to her crew as they reloaded the kinetic cannons manually. "We keep fighting. No matter what breaks, no matter what fails, we keep fighting." Her damaged squadron destroyed 5 command nodes before they had to withdraw. But those 5 nodes had been coordinating 200 Devourer vessels. Without them, that entire section of the enemy fleet fell into disorder. The battle reached its turning point in the 4th hour. The Devourer fleet, designed for quick, efficient victories, found itself locked in a grinding war of attrition. Their tactical systems couldn't process why the Council ships kept fighting. The calculations said they should be destroyed. The logic said they should surrender. But they did neither. General Wu Jin, commanding from a ship held together by human armor plating and stubborn determination, saw the shift. "They're starting to break. Not retreating, just losing cohesion. Press the attack." The Council fleet surged forward. Ships that had been fighting defensively went on the offensive. The Indomitable, its hull scarred and smoking but its weapons still firing, led the charge. Soman's voice rang across the fleet channels. "This is for the 40,000 humans who died holding the line. This is for every species in the galaxy. This is for every living thing these machines would have consumed. We end this now." The final assault was chaos. Ships from dozen species fought side by side, using tactics taught by human instructors, protected by armor designed with human principles, sustained by the human philosophy of endurance over elegance. The Devourers fought back with mechanical precision, but precision wasn't enough against unpredictability and sheer determination. In the 6th hour, the last Devourer command node was destroyed. The remaining enemy ships, unable to coordinate, unable to adapt, were picked apart by the Council fleet. One by one they fell silent. One by one they were eliminated. When the final Devourer vessel exploded, the Council fleet held position, weapons ready, scanning for any remaining threats. But space was clear. The battle was over. The cost had been terrible. The Council had lost 120 ships. Thousands of lives had been sacrificed, but they had won. The Devourer fleet, the greatest threat the galaxy had ever faced, was destroyed. On the Indomitable's bridge, Soman sat in her command chair, exhausted but alive. Around her, the crew was celebrating, crying, embracing, humans and aliens together, bound by shared survival. Hian approached her, his uniform torn and scorched. "We did it. Your ancestors would be proud. They would be relieved," Soman replied. "They bought us time 200 years ago. Today, we proved that time wasn't wasted." In the weeks following the battle, the Galactic Council met to honor the fallen and celebrate the survivors. Humanity's provisional membership was made permanent with a unanimous vote. No one questioned their worthiness now. No one called them primitive. The Indomitable was designated a memorial ship, a museum that would travel the galaxy sharing the story of humanity's sacrifice and survival. But it would also be kept combat-ready, a reminder that sometimes the old ways work best. A new vessel was commissioned, built using both human and alien technology. It would be called the GCSS Indomitable Spirit, jointly crewed by humans and Council species. It would serve as a symbol of the Alliance, combining the best of both approaches. Director Soman was offered command of the new ship. She accepted, but only if Chief Engineer Minho came as her chief engineer, and if the crew would be trained in both modern and human techniques. On the day of the new Indomitable Spirit's launch, representatives from every Council species attended. The ship was a beautiful hybrid of technologies, sleek and advanced but with human redundancy built into every system. Fast but durable, powerful but reliable, Ambassador Taman gave a speech that would be remembered for generations. 200 years ago, an unknown species called humanity saw a threat and chose to stand against it. They didn't ask for permission. They didn't seek reward. They simply did what they believed was right, and it cost them everything. Today we honor that sacrifice by ensuring it will never be forgotten.